Right, are we all ready? Tommy, you're all ready over there? Welcome everyone to Governance and Resources Committee on the 10th of October 2024. First off, any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Flitter and Councillor Gretrix, and substituting is Councillor Limpwaite.
Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have anyone to propose? Thank you, Councillor Bates. Do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Hughes. And can we put that to the vote then, please? Everyone for? And abstention? And, okay, presumably against as well. Thank you very much. Have we got that? Oh, Brill, thank you. We've got no public participation tonight, just to confirm. Thank you. And any interests from any members? No questions, which brings us on to item 6, the first one, upgrade of uniform public access and implementation of a public access test system. Which I believe Mr. Capes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick introduction. This is a relatively simple report to put into place a upgrade to the uniform system, which is the system used by the planning department. And the public access system is what drives the planning portal on the website. So when you search for a planning application, it's the uniform public access system that you use. So this is to upgrade that to a supported version and to add a test system so that when we do add information to it, we can make sure it's right first time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the floor at all? No? No questions? Okay, does anyone want to propose, if we're happy with that? Thank you very much, Councillor Hughes. Any seconders? Thank you, Councillor Ripton. And can I have everyone for, please? Everyone against? Or abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, unanimous. Thank you. On to the next item, thank you everyone. For Asset Management Plan, Land Holdings Review Phase. Mike.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is a bit of a mixed bag, this report. It's a Land Holdings Review report. It provides details on 4 pieces of land where we're proposing a sale and 1 piece of land where we're proposing a lease into the council. And I think probably the best way is if I run through each site by site and then stop for any questions on that specific site, if that's agreeable. So the first site is the site at Clifton Road in Ashbourne, which is a commercial development site in effect. It's left over from a much larger landholding that the District Council had in that area. Over the years, we've built the leisure centre on part of it. We've sold the site to St Oswald's Hospital. We've sold the site to 2 doctors' surgeries. The remaining land are these sections A and B, as shown on the plan. Originally, we were going to look at a commercial open market disposal to put the site on the market with an agent. But we have been approached by a local business that occupy the building, the rectangular building between sites A and B, and they are interested in purchasing either or both areas of the land, depending on the cost, in order to expand their local business, which I understand employs between sort of 15 and 20 people in Ashbourne. So the approach we're recommending is that we would get an open market value, a fair valuation, which is by an independent valuer. So it's not, we're not imposing what we want for the land. It's what the land is actually worth in the open market. So we're getting an estimation of that from a valuer to which both parties, ourselves and the interested party, are paying towards the costs of that. And then we will get to a valuation, and the proposal is to complete the disposal the freehold to that party for the open market value of the land. And they've said that they would prefer, they would like both sites, but it depends on the value. So they certainly want site A, but if possible, they would purchase site B as well. In terms of consultation, Ashbourne Town Council have come back and said that they are supportive of that proposal, or they have no objections to that proposal. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that one.
Councillor Bates.
I'd like just to ask one question. St Oswald's Hospital, the site has never been big enough, the car park for St Oswald's. Has St Oswald's been approached? Because they might be interested in the site as well, either site, for extension of a car park.
Through you, Chair, we haven't approached them directly. We have been in discussions with them about signage and other items they have that affect that land, but they have not ever shown any interest in expanding onto that site. I mean, that site's been there since the hospital was built, and we've never had any approach from them about it. And in fact, they have a sign on part of the site, and we were trying to get that position regularised, and that will be excluded from this sale, where the hospital signage is, but they've not asked for it for car parking. I mean, I think we have two options with this site. We could put it on the open market, and they or anyone else could bid for it. But in this case, because we've been approached by this local business, we are taking that approach first to see whether they would be able to purchase it, which would safeguard that business in Ashbourne and the jobs that go with it.
Councillor.
Have any of these sites, are they likely to be useful for possible sites for travellers? I'm only asking that just before we sell some land that could actually be for that possibility.
Right, well, it's not my direct area, but as I understand it, that there is a consultation going through about temporary, or it's just closed, about temporary tolerated traveller sites, and 6 sites have been chosen by elected members, of which, as part of that, they had a list of all sites in the council's ownership, which would have included these 2. So it wasn't selected for that. In terms of the permanent site, as I understand it, the consultants looking for a permanent site are aware of all of our land holdings as well. So it will have been looked at as part of that process.
So I can be assured that this land has been put forward as to the Gypsy and Travellers site committee. So they were aware of it.
They're aware of all sites in the council's land,
Yeah.
all sites in the council's ownership. Yeah,
Right, thank you.
which would include that.
Councillor Linthwaite.
It was just a follow-up for Councillor G. I've put forward 3 potential sites for consideration that were all considerably bigger than these, and they weren't big enough. So that's the first point. And the second one, particularly like the Pete's Close one at Kirkhighton, is in the middle of a cul-de-sac with houses all around it and a footpath, so it wouldn't be suitable. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Are we going to vote on each one? I think we would, as we go, I think, or are we going to vote on each one at the end? Sorry. Yeah. Could we have, so for this site, if there's any more questions, we're going to vote on each site, sorry, just to be clear for everyone, as we go through on each individual one, just because if we wrap it all up together, there'll be each one will carry individual issues and questions and potential challenges that we may want to raise or bring further. So everyone, could I ask, would I ask for a firster and a seconder on? Yeah, okay, mover and a seconder. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Linthwaite. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shelley. And can I have a vote, please, for everyone? Everyone for? And abstention? Thank you very much. Do you want to take us on to site number 2 then? Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So site 2 is, it is a disposal, but it's a regularisation of a position. And I think the plan at the start of the appendix for that site shows a rectangle of land adjacent to the store, which was previously Waitrose and is now Yorkshire Trading Company. That rectangle of land has always been used as access to a loading bay for vehicles for the store at that location. So it wasn't used for parking. We didn't derive car parking income from it, but it is our land because it is part of Shawcroft Car Park land holding. The current occupier, Yorkshire Trading Company, has reconfigured the store so they are using that site as their main entrance, main customer entrance, not as the loading bay. And as such, as you can see in the photograph in the report or in the appendix, they're also using that to display goods for retail sale. So this is an attempt to regularise that position with Yorkshire Trading. In effect, looking at it and consulting with colleagues in car parks, we feel that to regularise the position, the best way would be to sell the land to Yorkshire Trading at a market value, which is considered to be £25,000, to regularise the position. If they don't wish to do that, then we would be looking to enforce the fact that the land can't be used for retail sale and on display as it is at the moment. So on that one, we've had a response from Ashbourne Town Council. They say they object to that because of the effect on the car park. But I think that the effect on the car park depends on what the history was. We're not selling a piece of car park and taking car parking spaces that derive income away. Shawcroft Car Park would remain the same size as it has been after this transaction. All we're doing is regularising a use of land that's moved from access to a loading bay to retail display. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hughes, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I was a bit concerned about this one because it takes a small chunk out of the car park and it would make any future landscaping of the car park or any change of use in the future more difficult to achieve, potentially. At the moment, we've got a straight line at that end of the car park, and this will put a little notch into that straight line. So I was not, and really the trader has taken land that didn't belong to him and repurposed it for his own use. And perhaps we ought to be retrospectively collecting a rent for that. So I'm not entirely in favour of this. I feel that we should be enforcing our rights over the land and returning it to use as a car park rather than selling it to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Ripton? Oh, sorry, apologies, Mike. Sorry, apologies. You're quite right.
Point of view.
Yeah, I understand that point of view, and that is, I suppose that would be another option. That's our view of how best to regularise it, which would be to sell. But obviously, sale isn't the only way forward with any site. But it was our proposal as a way to regularise the situation. Again, in the knowledge that this piece of land, although they've resurfaced it, it was always tarmac and it was always used as the loading bay to the store. And there is a bit of a balance. I think the retail use is the issue here. There is a bit of a balance with Shawcroft Car Park because Shawcroft Car Park also provides loading bay access to all of the retail stores, or a number of the retail stores around it, and without that access those stores couldn't trade and survive. So there is a balance between making land available but making sure that commercially we are getting a proper return for it. That's what hence the proposal.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Linthwaite.
I remember Waitrose using this as a loading bay. Where do Yorkshire Trading, where do they use as a loading bay then? Because they're not using this bit, are they? This is the pedestrian entrance as well.
Through your chair, yes, so they're using some land at the side, which is to the plan that's provided. It's to the top of that rectangle. Waitrose and previous occupiers have used that as the loading bay, and they've had trucks reversed into there whilst unloading, whereas now it goes to the side of the store, which is still part of their land holding, but the area that they were previously using for that is have used for retail display and reconfigured their entrance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor G. Oh.
Debate on this, or?
Do I have to have a proposer, I think, first before we go to debate? Yeah. Do we have a proposer at all? Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shelley. Should we move to debate then? Thank you. Councillor G.
Yeah, I think what Councillor Hughes said sounds to make some sense. I think this is something we need to scrutinise properly, because we don't want to dispose of something that could be an asset to the council for what is like a pittance, in effect, that could cause us some problems in the future. So I think he raises a really good point.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other points?
So I thought the officer answered that reasonably well, that they'd taken that into account as one of the options and thought the option he was proposing was what they thought was the best way forward. So it feels like the right thing to go for me.
Any other people for debate? No? Shall we move towards the vote? Good. All those for, please. Those against? And abstentions, please. Sorry if you got all that. Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. Do you want to move on to the next item?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the next item is the one that's slightly different because it's a proposed lease in. And the reason for it is set out in the report, but it's basically to accommodate some lighting of a public thoroughfare, which is in the ownership of the District Council, between St John Street and the end of Shawcroft Car Park. It's a popular pedestrian route through. It has lighting on the on a store on the as the photograph is the top photograph in the report shows on the right hand side of the pedestrian thoroughfare, which was put up a number of years ago in agreement with the owner of the building on the right. That building has changed hands. That agreement was, I suppose you would call it gentleman's agreement. It's not legally enforceable. We have a meter in there, and we've always paid for the electricity for those lights and maintained the lights. The current owner is redeveloping the shop and wants our apparatus removed and our meter removed, and we've had discussions, but that's non-negotiable. So that lighting has got to come out. So we've looked at options, and the option is to place the lighting, new lighting, which would be LED lighting, more energy efficient, on the opposite side of the thoroughfare, which is shown in the lower photograph, part of which is a new property, well, new within probably built within the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, but the top property is a listed building. So we would require listed building consent in order to install the cabling and the lights, but we think that is likely to be acceptable because they're not going to be very intrusive, but we would still have to go through that process. So it would be subject to applying for listed building consent. We will also need a lease with the property owner to allow us to place the apparatus on his premises. And for that, we're proposing a 20-year lease, and that would be at an initial payment of £10,000 and then a peppercorn rent for the remainder of the lease. That would allow us to put the lights on there and maintain them for the next 20 years. We would also have to pay the cost of the electricity used as we do now. So that is the proposal. The negotiations aren't complete yet, but that is the basis on which we are looking to proceed. Obviously, we'll have to pay for the lights themselves, and the total cost of the project is expected to be around £20,000. And as well as providing improved, more energy efficient lighting in that location, it will also add value to Ashbourne Reborn scheme and the improvements that are being made to the remainder of Ashbourne. It will link in with that, having better lighting in this location. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll open it to the floor then. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Ripton.
Mike, can I just clarify? I understand the building owner wants the stuff removed, but we're going to pay £10,000 to install lighting, and the primary beneficiary of that lighting is the people or the building owner to whom we're going to now attach these lamps. So they are charging us for us to do them a favour.
If I may, Chair, I mean, it's wider than that. I mean, yes, it will benefit them, and it will benefit the person that's developing the building that's asking us to remove them. But it also benefits the public, and it is a very popular, well-used thoroughfare. And if it's not lit, obviously there will be lighting when shops are open, etc. But at other times, the area will be quite dark, and it could be that could encourage antisocial behaviour, etc., and just generally making people not feel safe to walk through that thoroughfare, which is a link between the main car park in Ashbourne, Shawcroft, and the town centre. And it would be a shame if that couldn't happen, given the improvements that are happening to the rest of the town.
Thank you, Councillor Ripton. I think you've got to follow up on that.
I don't dispute the need for the lights. It grates a little bit that we're doing this and being asked to pay for the privilege. Have we considered any, and I'm no expert in lighting, any freestanding lighting that does not require the consent of the building owners?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, we've looked at all the options, and that would require a whole new electricity supply, whereas will be using an existing electricity supply. The cost of doing that is equivalent to the lease payment. I mean, again, I suppose it's similar to the previous site, that yes, it does benefit people, but there is a commercial value to it, to providing part of a lease of part of private premises to allow the installation of lighting on the surface of those, on the facade of those premises. So it does benefit them, but commercially, that is the, and this has been negotiated. We're not just accepting, the first figure. That is the value, basically, of having a lease of that type. But to put it in the centre through street lighting type apparatus would cost a similar amount, and there are difficulties with that, with restrictive covenants, etc., on the land.
Thank you. Councillor Shelley.
Thank you. It seems rather a neat juxtaposition with the previous item, doesn't it, in the sense that the cost of this is probably being borne by the cost of the income from the previous one, so I welcome that. Just a couple of quick questions around my lack of knowledge of Ashbourne Reborn. This is not actually part of or adjacent to any of the areas being covered by that. And I wasn't, again, my ignorance here, I wasn't aware that the District Council actually had much by way of public street lighting. I see the absolute benefit for this in terms of public safety and general amenity, so I don't dispute that, but I'd be interested to know if public lighting was a major aspect of our work. Is this something of an outlier?
Oh yeah, through you, Chair. It is a bit of a. We have got various single street lights at various locations throughout the district, but this is probably the biggest area of lighting that we have. And I think a lot of these things, it's basically just by the history of how land ownerships came about that we've been responsible for this area, because it's not public highway, so the county council don't have any responsibility for it, but we are the landowner of the right of way through there.
Councillor G.
Yeah, I'm slightly taken aback by this, because are we leaving open the idea that any darkened public thoroughfares at night, Derbyshire Dales District Council are going to be looking at lighting them up? Because that slightly surprises me in this day and age of sort of low lights and keeping, for eco-type idea. Because no doubt there are going to be lots of other examples of darkened thoroughfares at night that haven't been lit up, that people have managed to walk down. So, how much is it costing us? £10,000, did you say?
The whole scheme's probably around £20,000.
£20,000?
Yeah.
I mean, are there any darkened thoroughfares that Derbyshire Dales District Council are responsible for in other towns and communities that possibly could ask for the same expenditure?
No, I think this is a bit of an anomaly, but though we are looking at other lighting as part of the Ashbourne Reborn scheme for instance, in the marketplace. So there are other areas that we light. I think the issue with this is the lighting's already there and has been for a number of years, and if it's suddenly withdrawn, it's going to create an issue where there wasn't one previously. So the attractiveness of that area and the use of that area, which will bring trade to the town with people parking and going to use the shops, will be diminished by if we don't do something. So it's not a question of looking for something to do to light an area that's never been lit before. This has previously been lit, and this change of circumstances means that it will no longer be lit unless we put forward a scheme to do it, hence this report.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, did you have a response first?
Sorry, I was going to move it, actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think in terms of Ashbourne Reborn, though, it's sort of in Ashbourne Reborn. There is budget that could be available for it, but whether or not it's spent on this is another matter. So. Can I move it?
You may. I think Councillor Linthwaite's got a question as well.
Oh, okay.
First.
It wasn't, well, it was a question. I suspect some of this has a historical aspect. Can I just ask, the garages that used to be here, were they council garages?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, they were. That's how the scheme originally came about, I think, because we did own garages, and that's why we owned the land, because it was the access to those garages.
Thank you. David. Sorry, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Nick. Sorry, Chair. I hear what you're saying, Councillor G, but I feel that it's our land. If we don't have very many thoroughfares on our land, but we have a duty to make them safe, particularly at night and for all residents and visitors. So my feeling is that it's money well spent in making the horse and jockey yard safe for nighttime, particularly for nighttime users. And therefore, I'd like to move this as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a second at all? Councillor Bates?
I'd like to second that, Chair. I quite agree. I walked down, the lights were off the other night, and it's quite intimidating walking down there at night. So it does need doing, definitely.
Thank you, Councillor. Could we put that to the vote then? Everyone for then, please. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That was passed. Thank you. I could go on to site number 4 then, please, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the next two sites are similar in terms of the principle and what we're asking for. And both of these next two sites have been to this committee before in summer last year and were deferred to allow us to explore the potential for, or to allow the council to explore the potential for affordable housing development. So we're now bringing them back. And so the first site is a site in Bonsall. And the proposal is, as per the report, to sell by public auction. So we would get open market value, and that money would go to the council as capital receipt. And if it's assuming it would be over £10,000, which I would assume it would be, that would go to towards capital programme. The housing team have looked at the sites, and there's an issue with viability of developing small single unit sites. It's not commercially, well, not commercially, it's not viable for housing associations to develop single site dwellings, and therefore they're not interested in taking something like that forward because of the relatively high costs, the limited value in terms of the rent that would be produced going forward. And it is far a better use of their funds and their resources to look at purchasing the affordable housing that's coming forward from Section 106, of which there's over 300 units coming in the coming years. And those offer with them economies of scale, which mean that we can get relatively, I suppose, expensive open market value homes for approximately 40% of the cost, and at scale as well. I think there's a number of those that will be coming forward on potentially on the Ashbourne airfield site. So we've established that affordable housing use isn't commercially viable, either for the council doing it directly or with a partner housing association. So therefore the proposal is to sell the site at open market value, and then to use that money will then be invested in the council's capital programme, which enables some of the council's core priorities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Open to the floor for any questions. Councillor Buttle.
Thanks, Mike. This is just sheer nosiness. Why is the top end of that patch not in the same sort of patch of red? It looks to me like that's the original garden or the original plot. Have we sold that already to somebody else?
Through you, Chair. No, we've not sold anything around this site. I think we own this land basically by historical accident, I suppose. It's just land holding that has been probably with our predecessor authority before Derbyshire Dales, and now rests with us. It's not been developed over the years, probably because it's never been viable to do so. But that's not to say that we wouldn't be able to sell it on the open market. Someone may wish to take it on to develop a property or as a garden extension or for another purpose subject to planning. So hence why we're bringing this report back. Oh, just one thing I should have added as well. We haven't had any response to the consultation on this from the parish council. They have previously talked about they would like to see affordable housing on this site, but again, our housing team have looked at that, and it is not viable to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor G.
Yeah, because this is talking about sale by public auction. have I missed something? Is there any sort of reserve values on this? I can't see, you know, for instance, on page 44, land, I can't, but
Through you, Chair. So we would commission an auctioneer to sell the sites, and we, in conjunction with the auctioneer, we will set a reserve price at the time, based on.
But you're asking this committee to agree to sell some land, but you're not telling us how much you're going to sell it for.
Yes, that's because the reserve price will be set by the council's valuer in conjunction with the auctioneer, who will also be a valuer. So, and we have a duty as a local authority to get the best price reasonably obtainable for any land that we sell. So that is the normal procedure with an auction sale. Sites like this are often sold by auction, and it gives people the opportunity to do their own research and to make an offer that they see fit, given what they propose to do with it and I suppose their financial position.
But wouldn't it have been better to come and get these valuations and come to this committee with the valuations so we can talk about it? Because, I mean, I see plots of land for sale all the time. There's a small plot in Cryge, which, you know, it's advertised for about 150,000 and it's like a postage stamp. And I'm just wondering, you know, you're asking me to vote to dispose of this land on behalf of the council. And as a councillor, I'm responsible for the financial well-being of the council. And I haven't got a clue what's going to happen next. So I'm not very happy with that.
Well, through you, Chair. Well, I mean, I would say that's why you have officers that are responsible for these areas and have experience in these areas to deal with them in accordance with the rules, because we also share that duty of getting the best price reasonably obtainable. We have to justify what we do, and also it would not be good practice to say in a public committee, this is what we would like to get for this site before it goes on the market, because we will be giving away, in effect, commercially sensitive information. We're not requiring anyone to pay a certain amount for this site. People will bid as they see fit, and the auctioneer will, in conjunction with us, decide whether where a sensible reserve would be. And if we don't get a bid up to that reserve, the site will not sell at this stage.
Could I come back on that?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't follow the system where the property in Overhaddon that was gifted to the council, because we had an open meeting where the figures were actually put in a paper, where the valuation was put in, and then the valuation was put to a estate agent, but we did actually see the figures. It's not, you know, it's just so the members are actually sure that we're not doing something undervalued, if you know what I mean. So it's not following the procedure we had with the property at Overhaddon.
Okay, but I think this is following the principle that we're going to go down this particular path. And this is obviously what we've already agreed to in the first one. So obviously the property there, we're waiting for what the market declares that to be. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's completely different. That's the point I'm making, really.
I think, if I may, Chair, I mean, disposal by public auction of sites is something we've done as an authority for over 20 years now. I think one of the first ones that we sold were under my employment here were our former offices in Ashbourne. A lot of sites have been sold by public auction, and we've been very successful with that in terms of bringing in finance for land that is surplus to our requirements. That land then gets developed, and we get a capital receipt that can be invested in the council's priorities via the capital programme. I just repeat that we have the same duties, both as valuers and as council officers. We have to abide by the Local Government Act, which is very clear about open market getting the best price reasonably obtainable and when and where an undervalued transaction is allowable. And those are the rules within which we operate.
Can I just come in?
Could I just make one last
Can you wait there a
point?
second? Because if it's going to be a question, otherwise we'll move it to debate.
No, it's just to come back on that, because I'm not totally convinced that the sale by public auction is likely to bring the best deal for the council, because, you know, that's obviously, we're not doing that with the property in Overhaddon. And if you've got a building plot in the middle of Bonsall, it might be not useful for our affordable housing developers, but people would be swarming all over it. And, you know, you could put it through a local estate agent like you've done with the property in Overhaddon, and that might raise more
I feel this is, we're moving into debate there, really, I think, if we're honest. If you want to bring it back into debate, that's fine. Sorry, Councillor Linthwaite next. You had your hand up, sorry. And then you, Councillor Butcher, after.
Apologies, Chair. It was really a comment I wanted to make rather than a question.
Thank you. Councillor Butcher.
So a question that helps maybe to inform this is there some principle as to why we do things in one way sometimes, and I'm completely confident in what you're doing here to be the right way, and why we might do it in other ways, in, for instance, Overhaddon, which you may or may not know that particular detail. Are there kind of principles of purchase or sale that apply?
Through you, Chair. Well, I think it's principles that, such as all officers use as the best way to do something, whether it's which type of contract to use to deliver a service, or which type of vehicle to use to sell land, and it varies. Sometimes it's leasehold, sometimes it's tender, sometimes it's an open market sale through an agent. It very much depends on the site. Sometimes we do expressions of interest first, and then we follow that up with offers. So there are different ways, but we feel for these sites, this is the best way forward, because we can sell a site, we can ensure that we've got the best value for it, and we do that basically at nil cost to the council, because we have a buyer's premium where the purchaser also pays our fees, or the auctioneer's fees. So it's sold as no cost to the council, and brings that capital receipt in. But yes, it does vary from site to site, but that is our judgment as how best to sell this site and the site to follow. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Franz, sorry.
Yeah, definitely not councillor. Yeah, just a point on that as well. Obviously, there are different methods of selling properties, going through the open market via estate agents, and also through the auction process. I mean, the auction process it's sold on the day. Therefore, you don't have to go through negotiations, and therefore, you know, the buyers could always pull out if you are going through estate agents, as you all know. So, all of us have bought and sold houses. But the auction, you've got the benefit of that it's sold, the exchange contracts on that day, and therefore they are within that contractual process. So that could be seen as an advantage for some types of land. So I just wanted to sort of add that bit in, just to give clarity on the different methods of purchasing land or selling.
Thank you, Kerry. Councillor Bond.
I'd just like to move the two recommendations, please, Chair. Are we taking the two items together?
We'll do them both separately, with Kirk Iton.
We're doing them both separately.
Yeah. Because we have done so far with each site, isn't it? Presume site 4 and site 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Please, if we could.
Yeah.
Just because we have done so far.
Fine,
I understand that.
I just thought they were fairly similar. But yes, I'll move the recommendation for site 4 then, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bates, seconder. And did anyone want debate then? You have that opportunity. Councillor Linthwaite, did you want to?
It was just a quickie, really, that at auction, and the land is advertised at a guide price, but the reserve is not advertised. So you can protect the council's interests by your reserve price.
Councillor G.
Yeah, I just don't believe this is the best way to get the best return for the council. And it's not like we're desperate and we want to do something quickly. You know, people tend to sell houses at auction because they're desperate, because there's all sorts of situations why people might sell a house at auction. And it's not always the case that auctions are successful, because you see a lot of property auctions where the properties aren't sold. And I just think we're not desperate to sell these assets quickly. So we should have them valued properly and put them on sale at a good valuation. And then we're prepared to wait a little while and get the best buyers, because so it circulates about.
Thanks, Councillor G. Any other opinions? Councillor Butcher.
Yes, I mean, I understand Councillor G's interests, but I feel the officers know more than I do about the best way of doing this. I prefer to stick with the officer's recommendation unless I know that there's more expertise forthcoming.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Anyone else? Or shall I put that to the vote then? Everyone for this? Those against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. On to site number 5 then, please, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a similar situation. Again, this came to committee before. It's a site that we own in Kirkhighton. It's a rough surface piece of land, though part of it, I think you see on the plan, there's a sort of curved line partway up the site. Part of it is used informally for car parking within the village, though I think most of the vehicles that park there are related to homes within the immediate locality, most of which do have drives. It's not an official car park. It's a piece of land that is basically left over from a previous development of Pete's Close. So therefore, again, for the reasons I've stated before, it's not suitable for affordable housing development. There is a substation off the back of the site, which also has access requirements. So the site isn't fully developable to the full extent of the site isn't developable. There's an access through it, but we've reduced that access by negotiation with the statutory undertakers, and we feel that there is enough room on that site then for someone to purchase the site and for an appropriate use subject to planning. So same procedure as before. We're recommending public auction. We've had a response to the consultation from the parish council. They've pointed out about the electricity transformer, which we know about, and we've negotiated something on that. They have made the point that they feel that there's valuable off-street parking, to which the local residents feel they have an established right. They've just made that point. There's a shortage of off-street parking in the village. But they have also said if the land fails to sell, the parish council would be prepared to take over the land and maintain it as a car park. So nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Buttle.
Mike, I remember this one from last time round. I think I asked you whether or not it was possible to get an outline planning permission for a single dwelling to see if we could get more at auction.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I mean, I think with these sites, and I think it echoes the point made by Director of Housing. It's a question of how we use limited officer time and resources, because there are other sites and projects which are corporate priorities on which officers are working, and yes, you can work up a site, you can get a design done, you can get outline planning permission, etc., but that all takes time and resources, which as a council we don't necessarily have. However, in the open market, people will do that sort of research, and they will bid accordingly. So we're in effect outsourcing that and some of the risk that goes with it, in order to I suppose dispose of the site and bring in a capital receipt and rid ourselves of the maintenance liability, because the maintenance liability is such that people are parking on it. If a pothole develops in the site and someone injures themselves on it, there will be an insurance claim, etc. So we have legal liabilities to these sites. They're surplus to our requirements, and that's why we are proposing to dispose of them. But we could spend a lot of time on every site working up various possibilities and but it's a question of a balance between time, resources, and the likely income that the council would get as a result of the sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Butcher.
Yes, just to clarify for my own benefit what Councillor Buffer was asking about. So if you had outline planning permission for this, would that change the value of the land quite substantially, or is it a relatively minor thing?
Through you, Chair. I mean, I think it depends on the interest in the site. Some developers would prefer to look at that themselves, get pre-application advice, and go down that route, depending on the development that they're proposing, rather than us. We're suggesting it might be suitable for a single unit, but someone might find that you can get 2 units on there with undercroft car parking, etc. That is an area of expertise that sits with developers and really not with us. So I think we're leaving that to their judgment and for them to do the research that goes along with that.
Thank you. Any more? Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Bates? Councillor Linthwaite? And second it. Thank you. I take it there's no debate points on that one. So could we go for a vote? Everyone for, please? Those against? And abstentions? Thank you. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. On to agenda item number 8. Data Protection and Information Governance Annual Report 23-24, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take the first part of the report. It's the annual Data Protection and Information Governance Report. And although my job title is a Business Support Manager, I'm actually the Freedom of Information Officer as well. So it's just our usual annual report that obviously gives you an overview of what's happened with regards to freedom of information requests and our target responses, and how we've dealt with those accordingly throughout the last financial year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Sorry about that. There was an item on the last agenda item, don't we? Sorry. Any questions from the floor? Apologies. Data protection. Mark, thank you.
Through the chair, I think. The key elements for the report as far from data protection is concerned is to continue to improve council's compliance with the ICO accountability tracker. This will be a key task for the new Director of Corporate Customer Services in their capacity as the authority's data protection officer, to review and update the council's information asset register and records processing activities to take account of new processes and systems, to review and update the council's suite of information governance policies to reflect organisational changes, wider national developments, and the further development self-service approach to the information management advice and guidance via the council's intranet. They implement additional measures to seek to minimise the number of security incidents occurring, including targeting additional training for those services where incidents are most prevalent, and to work collaboratively across services to maintain the council's high compliance rate for subject access requests. There's also within the document itself, there's some breakdown on figures in regards to requests for information, so subject access requests, also data breaches again, and information requests in regard to right of erasure rectification and restrictions of processing. One of the things we are looking at is to embed within the information governance board meetings a quarterly report in regards to staff training for data protection, and for those new starters to do the data protection, and for existing staff members to have refresher training on a 2-yearly basis. And the other area that is in the pipeline is for the data protection training for elected members. I'm looking round, some of you have done this before, I know it's painful. We haven't done it this year because we had a local election and then we had a general election. We're going to try and do it again, and we've got a by-election coming up as well. So we thought we'll wait until the by-election's gone through, and then hopefully we can capture all the members together and do the data protection training for the elected members, maybe in the at the beginning of the new year, early in the new year.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor at all? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions. First is from the first page. I was wondering what the self-service approach is, what it was likely to be. That's the first question.
Sorry, through the Chair. Self-service approach, if you went onto the Derbyshire, the SID site, and if you look at service areas, the information governance team has updated its pages on there. So hopefully staff members and also elected members will be able to look at that if they have any queries in relation to information governance and data protection. So it's trying to, there's only me as the information governance officer, and if we can get stuff online and people can actually access that, that would be one of the recommendations that we've had from the external consultant, to say it would free up my time if staff members can just refer straight to the information governance pages.
Thank you. Thank you. My second question is a more detailed one on page 56. The number of freedom of information requests, which has risen year on year, but there is a remarkably large rise between 2022-23 and 23-24. And I was wondering if you could see a pattern to these, whether there was a change in the way people were making information freedom of information requests, and whether there were concerted efforts by groups of people to make the same similar freedom of information requests about the similar topic or the same topic.
Through you, Chair. The rise, I would say, was predominantly the interest in certain projects throughout that time period, not to be specific on any. But also, if we have repeat requests that are similar, there is an exemption that can apply. There are options for officers to defer them or exempt from responding to them. We don't have an obligation to reply in full to every single one. But yeah, the number has risen considerably, and I think it's due to the fact that people are now more familiar with freedom of information being as accessible as it is to find out the information that they want to quickly and easily. It's just a more commonly wide option to gain information from authorities.
So to come back, would that indicate that there were groups of people who are making use of freedom of information requests in some
yes,
way?
as you'll say, I've circulated, sorry, through you, Chair, I circulated some information earlier to you with regards to the environmental health ones, and you'll notice a specific area there relating to pauper funerals and the numbers that we received there. Obviously, the interest there is that it's the council's responsibility to arrange for that funeral because this person hasn't any family. But there are companies out there that are keenly interested in that person's estate, if there is any. And so they obviously make regular requests through freedom of information, and we have to respond to them because they could have changed from the last time they submitted. So there's nothing, there's a template which we respond to. It doesn't draw on officers' time too much, but it is something, we have to be transparent with the information and answer them when we can. And sadly, we don't have any control as to what they ask about within reason. But generally, yeah, it's there for us to be open and transparent, and the majority of questions are the ones that we need to respond to.
Sorry, Chair, I just wondered whether I missed something. I might have been dozing earlier on. Agenda item 5, which was the questions regarding procedure number 15, Councillor Ripton submitted a number of questions related to FOIs, and I thought that they related to this particular item. Am I wrong? Did we deal with that? Because Councillor Hughes' questions are overlapping with the questions and the answers.
Yeah, I believe those were all circulated.
Yes,
shared with
and
members,
again,
so-
what you, referred to just were very much related to an example
Yeah,
in terms
exactly.
of the
Yes.
environmental health side.
Yes.
So what you've just done is to reiterate an answer to questions that had previously been asked by Councillor Ripton and which had been answered in email.
Chair, can I come back? I've been working hard all day, and I worked right up until the time I came out to this meeting. And I didn't have a chance to look at my emails after I read through the papers this morning. I'm sorry if I ask the same questions again, but bear with me, please.
No, it's just I was obviously confused by the process, and it's been answered now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Linthwaite.
It may be a myth, but in law, is there the real concept of the vexatious litigant, first of all? Is that a real thing?
Should I answer that one through you, Chair? Yeah, there is within the Freedom of Information Act, you can deem an applicant as vexatious, but the bar is actually quite high. It is laid down in statute. I mean, it is of the opinion of officers, but it is quite a high bar, and I don't know whether we have stats in terms of how many applicants we have deemed as being vexatious, but I would imagine it's only a handful at best. But if this is something that you are specifically interested in, then we could look at this at this. But it's not something that we do as a duty, as of course, because we do try to be open and transparent and answer them rather than treat them and say, no, you can't have access to this information.
Yeah, I can just see, particularly with controversial subjects, individuals might take it upon themselves to bung up the works with lots of FOI requests. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, we haven't had any vexatious requests.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Councillor Bottle.
Oh, thanks. Oh, two questions, really. First was, we had these environmental information regulations. We had a choice of freedom of information or environmental information regulation questions. What's the balance on that? Is it like half and half, or there's only 1 in 100 are environmental information regulation questions?
Through you, Chair. On balance, for us as an authority, there are more freedom of information requests than there are environmental information requests. Generally, the environmental information requests we can deal with by other options or information that's held on the website with regards to planning or environmental issues. So there's more straightforward facility for people to find that information out. It's more easily accessible. So we find that our actual request or volume of requests for those are far lower than actual freedom of information requests.
As I expected. So my other question was, if people are interested in a question and they put forward a freedom of information request, do we actually publish in public on our website what the answer is? Do we always do that, and do we list who it is that's asked that?
Through you, Chair, yes we do. We've got a disclosure log which highlights every single freedom of information request we've received, again with environmental information requests also. There are limitations to that in the sense that depending on the information that we've provided, it may be too large a document to actually put on our disclosure log, but there's the facility there for somebody to actually request that information should they wish to. You can appreciate some of the information we have to cascade out is quite large and we don't have that facility to provide that option, but every single request is there along with any exemptions that we've given. Right. And yes, the requester is put on there.
So the final bit was, are they in subject areas so that we can look for repetition? If we're interested to find out whether or not there is something that has a general interest to a lot of people, will we be able to tell that? I've never been to this log. Okay. I'm sorry, it's just maybe I should have done, but...
Again, through you, Chair. Sadly not. It's not that sophisticated. It's literally on a date order. So we update it every month with the requests that we've received during that time frame, but there's no search functionality within there.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Ripton, and can I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes? Thank you. Can I put that to the vote then, please? All those for? Thank you. We've got to take a slight step back to item on the asset management, item agenda number 7, because we didn't flag up the recommendations as part of what we were voting on. I think you did propose the recommendations, didn't you, Councillor Bates, is that? But I just want to reflect that back to all members to make sure that they're cognizant of what they were voting for in there. Is it just 4 and 5 that we didn't vote on? So we just need to vote on those. And that's just to take people through. That's on the agenda item that is noted that the disposal of sites 1 and 2 above comprise undervalued transactions permitted under the General Disposal Consent 2003. And item number 5, responsibility for legal and surveyors' costs in respect of all transactions above are detailed in Appendix 1 of this report. Could I have a proposer for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bates. And can I have all those for, please? Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you, everyone. On to agenda item number 9, external audit. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you, Chair.
And you have brought a guest.
Indeed, thank you, Chair. And to introduce my colleague Jenny to you. Jenny is my audit manager on the audit, so was keen to come along and help me present this item and future items, no doubt. So this report gives you a brief update on the audit progress for the 23-24 external audit, and Jenny will give you a bit further detail on the financial statements audit progress. Just before I hand to Jenny, though, in terms of the first element in the report, we highlight the what are known as the backstop dates, which at previous meetings, members will recall me talking about these backstop dates that government had consulted on and proposed that would apply to audits that were incomplete. Just to confirm to you that for the previous years, that does not apply to the council. We've completed the previous year's audits, and the date that exists, which is the middle of December, is not something that is of concern to this council. And for the year that we're auditing, 23-24, the date is the end of February next year. Jenny can give you the detail, but I would be very surprised if that comes into play for your council, that we have the preparations and the plans to deliver the work well in advance of that deadline. So I'll let Jenny speak a little bit more about the financial statements progress, and then I'll wrap up, Chair.
Thank you, Alistair. Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll give a bit of an update on how the audit's progressing, because it has progressed since this report was submitted to this committee. So since week commencing 23rd of September, we have been here at the Town Hall carrying out the main stage of our audit work. We've also finalised the planning and interim stage in that first week. Things have been going very well. I would like to say thank you to Karen and Gemma's team for giving us everything that we need and being very responsive. It's much appreciated. There is a good stability in the audit team and also the finance team from the prior year and the year before, which has allowed us to build on our cumulative knowledge and experience. As Alistair said, we are planning to present, well, the 23-24 audit must be signed off because of the backstop by the 28th of February, which will not, we think, cause any problems. We are planning to present the audited financial statements to this committee on the 23rd of Jan. But in reality, the main part of the audit, if things carry on progressing at the stage that they have been progressing so far, and we continue to receive all the deliverables and the evidence that we need, we are aiming to complete that main stage by mid-November, and we'll be coming to the council offices regularly between now and then, with the completion, the review stage then happening in December and January, ready for us to present the audited statements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alistair.
Thanks, Jenny. And just to wrap up, Chair, in terms of our value for money responsibilities, the report does say that we've received everything. Slight inaccuracy that I put in there. There is still a self-assessment from the council that I know is with Karen, and we'll get that imminently. That's not going to hold us up at all. We're making progress with that work. and we will be completing that to present it at the same time at that January meeting. So you will have the full suite of audit findings coming to your January meeting, which is a good position to be in. And as usual in our update reports, we put some national publications in there of interest, hopefully of interest to members. There's a couple in there that our own firm has produced, Forvis Mazars, one of them, which is a quite useful. As someone who doesn't know or didn't know a lot about the Procurement Act and the impact on public bodies, hopefully that's of interest and of use to members, that summarises the impact of the Procurement Act on public bodies, which becomes applicable. It applies from the end of this month. I certainly won't answer any detailed questions on the Procurement Act, as I'm not an expert on such matters, but if members have got any questions on the audit progress or other matters, happy to take them, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the floor at all? No? Councillor Buttle, anything?
You know how disappointed I am when there's no questions.
I was quite interested in the prevention of fraud thing and the fact that fraud is the most popular crime in this country. How do you actually do that?
Could I ask you to clarify the question, Councillor? I could interpret that question in a number of different ways before I incriminate myself.
Well, if you're meant to be the failure to prevent fraud, surely that means you've got to identify weaknesses and then chase them up. Isn't that what you do anyway?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the failure to prevent fraud is it does apply to auditors in the same way. If I don't do my duties, then I would. But it's what applies to the council. So this is the impact on the council of unknowingly or unwittingly committing that crime of failing to prevent fraud. So hence the publication that's in there. Again, I'm far from an expert on the government's legislation and the criminal offence around failure to prevent fraud. Hence the link in the document that allows you to get that further information. But that is just highlighting that change in legislation and the new, as it says, criminal offence around those duties, which is highlighting the need for all organisations, not just public organisations, to make sure that they are fulfilling those duties to prevent fraud.
Has anything changed?
Well, I would imagine it might be a question to your officers, but I would imagine that there's a sharper focus. If there wasn't already, there is a sharper focus, because what has changed is that there is now a criminal offence around that. And hence, if organisations were not taking that seriously, and there's no indication that this or others are not, but if that wasn't the case, there is now a criminal offence that applies to that. So it has probably sharpened focus, if anything.
Gotcha.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. This is a point about presentation, request about presentation. I gather you've got your PowerPoint presentation set to a 16:9 screen format. Some of us don't have 16:9 screens, we have iPads. And on an iPad, the text is then too small to be able to read easily. Could you set the document so that it's an A4 shape, landscape or portrait, rather than 16:9, so that we can actually then read the text easily? Would it be possible to do that?
I will endeavour to, if not that, I will endeavour to make sure that the font size is of a sufficient size so that when it's in this format, it is readable. We'll endeavour to do that. If we can't do that into the A4 style, yeah, we'll endeavour to do that, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just as a comment on that, you can zoom in on the. Oh, did you? Oh, okay, right. Okay, right. Thank you. Oh, okay, thank you very much. Sorry, just checking. Sorry, Councillor G.
Yeah. This is really positive in the sense that I know we're very lucky to have Karen to look after the books, as it were. But I've had experience of another council, and I know, and also Mazars were involved in that as well. But one of the things I'm always concerned about is what risk us as members need to be aware of in the future, and things that could cause an issue for the council, and be not too relaxed in the financial situation as it is today, but what we've got to be aware of in the future, things like, you know, we've got the waste contract and the leisure centres and such like, so we need to be really on the ball with that, and I'm sure you're going to help us.
Well, that's where our value for money responsibility comes into play, where we will be for each year, and in January when we bring our commentary on your value for money arrangements, that's where you will be able to take assurance or otherwise on the conclusions and the commentary that we have on the arrangements the council has got to achieve value for money. One of those key elements is the medium-term financial sustainability of the council. So while that's not giving you positive assurance that the council is financially sustainable, it gives you our view on the arrangements that the council has got in place through its medium-term financial plan, through its risk management arrangements, through its savings plans, that it is doing what it should do to try and achieve that financial sustainability. So if that is a help, that's the help that an auditor can be in that context, is providing that external independent view of those arrangements.
Thank you for that, yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Bond.
I just wanted, Chair, to move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Shelley, thank you very much. And can I have everyone vote then, please? Everyone for? Oh. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. On to the next item then. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, guys. Thank you. We go to Revenue Budget Monitoring, Q1, 24-25, please, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this report shows the Council's forecast for the whole of 24-25 for revenue, spending and income, but based on actual spending and income to 30th of June. So budget managers have been asked to reflect on spending to 30th of June and then give us their best estimates of what the outcome might be for the year. Of course, these will be subject to changes, especially with the estimates being done so soon in this financial year. But using the information that they have, managers have provided their forecasts, and the outcome, as you see in the report, is the forecast underspend of £417,000 for 24-25. The reasons for the underspend, the big budget variances, are set out in the table on page 81 of the agenda pack. I would like to take the opportunity to correct an error in the second sentence of paragraph 1.9. That refers to a permanent increase in income from planning application fees. Actually, the paragraph is discussing a fall in planning application fees, so it should have referred to a permanent reduction. So apologies for that error. The £417,000, as I've mentioned, is a best estimate at this stage, and it's by no means certain. For that reason, as I explained in paragraph 1.13, at this stage, I'm not asking members to agree which reserves we place that £417,000 in, because it might not come about. So I'm recommending we wait till later in the year before those sorts of proposals. The report also shows an updated medium-term financial plan, and you can see that it shows that we should have a reasonably sustainable financial position in the future. However, as I've indicated, that medium-term financial plan doesn't include the potential impact of the fair funding review or the business rates reset that the former government proposed. I've removed those from the MTFP because we don't know yet when they will happen, although the indications are that the new government will take those forward. And also, we don't know the real impact of them and whether there'll be transitional measures. When we looked earlier, when we set the budget for council, you might remember I put two versions of the MTFP. And at that time, our consultants were suggesting that the impact of the business rates review and the fair funding review could mean that we lose income of £1.2 million in 26-27, rising to £2.3 million in 2028-29. If we were to see reductions of that magnitude, we'd clearly be talking to government about the impact on us. You might see that the recommendations of the report include some referrals to council. That's because this committee doesn't have the power to approve use of reserves, so we need to make a referral to council for those. And that's something I'll be looking at when I review financial regulations to try to streamline some of the way that budgets are dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions from the floor? Councillor Shelley.
Thank you, Karen. It's a very good report, and thank you for answering my questions by email earlier on. Just a quick follow-up on one of those, paragraph 1.7. It relates to Serco and our arrangements with them. I hadn't realised until your explanation that the council actually benefits from when Serco doesn't meet the standards, the targets that are met. There are penalties there, and I understand that the extra income, if we want to call it that, is regarded as a one-off in this case. Do you think that these kind of penalties may influence Serco in terms of how they are likely to bid to tender for future waste contracts with us in a way which could be disadvantageous to the council?
Well, I'm sure that the penalties have an impact on Serco. There is a cap to them, which I think is around about £400,000. And we have been issuing penalties to Serco from the start of the current contract. They have reduced recently. There were various reasons for the penalties in the past, but now I'm advised that the main reason for the penalties at the moment is because the round optimisation isn't working. So basically what that means is when Serco did their bid for the current contract, they had to assess which vehicles they used for our contract. And since they started operating the new contract, it's come to light that they made some errors. Some of the assumptions they made about vehicles have turned out to be inaccurate. So they assumed that some of the large vehicles could get around all of the area, and they've since found that the large vehicles can't access the area, all of the area, certain roads, and that's meaning that bins are being missed, and that's why they're being given financial penalties. So to come back to your question, I think not only, I'm sure that the financial penalties are affecting Serco, because we would expect that they would have made their bid assuming that they could deliver the service that they bid for.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hughes.
Just to supplementary to that point of Roger's, we know there's a campaign at the moment from the Derbyshire Dales about parking and blocking roads, and the waste services vehicles can't get through. Does Serco suffer a penalty when they can't get to an address because of parked vehicles, or is it some other reason?
I'm sorry, I don't know that level of detail.
No, okay.
That might be something you need to take up with the waste manager.
Okay, that's
yeah, I think that we're in danger of wandering into the contracts of that and stuff. So yeah,
it'd be very worrying if something they completely outside their
But no, I
control.
think maybe if you take that with the applicable
Ash, yeah.
officer, I think that'd be good. Councillor G.
Yeah, this is a slightly naughty question, but I'm always curious as to whether council officers are given any advance notification on the likely impacts on councils of the budget that's up and coming. I mean, are they actually discussed, and do you receive information?
Certainly not. For the financial settlement, it's usually a few days before Christmas. We might get a few rumours from consultants and so on. There might be a few leaks in the media, but we don't get anything directly before the announcement in Parliament.
Okay, thank you. And I wouldn't expect you to pass on any leaks to the members.
Thank you, Councillor G. Anyone else, or do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Ripton, thank you. Have a second. Councillor Bond, thank you very much. And can I have everyone vote for, please? Thank you very much. It's carried. Thank you, everyone. On to item number 11, Treasury Management Outturn Report 23-24. Oh, was that the one we just took? No. That's right, isn't it? Sorry, I am right. Yeah. Sorry. Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. So Treasury Management is the management of the Council's borrowing and lending. We only have one long-term loan from the Public Works Loans Board, and we don't need to borrow for our day-to-day requirements. So the focus is mainly on investments. The Council received interest on its investments of £1.4 million in 2023-24. So I feel that indicates the level of activity and shows why good Treasury management is so important. So I'm pleased that the report shows that Treasury management activities undertaken in 23-24 fully complied with the strategy and that prudential indicators were all within target. I haven't a great deal to add to the report other than to say I have received questions from some members about the environmental, social and governance investments assessment that's mentioned in the climate change implications part of the report. This would involve an assessment of the investments that the council make against specific criteria for each of those categories. At the moment, we don't have anybody in-house with the skills to do that. We probably wouldn't because it's a very specific skill set. Our Treasury advisors, Arling Close, do offer a service to do that. But last time we inquired, we found it was quite expensive. And it would also take up quite a lot of officer time to deal with that. As you can imagine, investments change almost daily because we're using the investments to balance our bank account and so on, to match the flows of income and expenditure. Also, we ought to think about whether it would be necessary to carry out such a function in relation to what it might cost. And by that, I mean, if you look at table 3, I think it is, on the reports, that shows the balance of investments at the 31st of March 2024. You can see that £15.5 million of the money that was invested on that day, so 75% of the money invested, was actually with local authorities and central government. So that means a lot of the investments were with those bodies, and only 25% were with banks or with the property fund. So it is something that we will look into further. Given members' questions, I will take it up with Arling Close and see what service they currently provide and what it might cost. But as I say, we'd need to balance that with the level of activity and the need for officer time.
Thank you, Karen. Any further questions on that? Councillor Shelley.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick follow-up from that. I don't know whether there would be any benefit to pooling our inquiries with other authorities who would be putting their investments into the same places, or this is one that the LGA could possibly help with?
I think that's probably what Arling Close would do because they're advising a lot of local authorities on the same investments. So you know, they would be effectively pooling that need. I haven't heard the LGA propose to do anything on it.
Councillor Hughes. Thank you.
I'd like to move this.
Thank you.
And can I say in passing what a pleasant report it was to read, and how it's clear, very clear and concise, given the complexity of the information it contains. So, Karen, you've done a grand job again, and congratulations on the income that you've generated for the council. I would argue against, given your success at doing that, I would argue against pooling our efforts with anybody else. You've got a success. You seem to have a successful strategy. Let's keep on with the same strategy. Thank you very much.
If I may say, Chair, it's most of the work was done by the principal accountant, whose name is the report author, Rachel Eyre. So she did a really good job. Thank you.
I would second that, Chair, and echo the same comments, really. Reading it through, I found plenty of clarity and really a cause for, in reflection of saying well done. This is really, a tremendous thing going forward. And I think it does show a very positive but cautious approach, which I think is what we would expect, and that is benefiting the council greatly. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor G.
Yeah, same again. I would definitely say you look after our money. Don't give it to any neighbouring authorities, because Amber Valley is still trying to get the money back from Iceland that they gave them prior to the collapse in 2008. So I think you're doing a very good job, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor G. Councillor Shelley.
Just to clarify my point, that the pooling of resources was purely to investigate the ethical nature of climate change investments, related investments.
No. Noted. Thank you, Councillor Shelley. Right, should we have a vote then, please? Yeah, everyone for? Carried. Thank you very much. On to item 12, arrears for write-down of 24-25 mid-year report. Karen, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. So this report deals with write-offs. I have an update to make to the report. I think you've got the information in front of you, basically updating Table 2 to the report, which shows the latest collection figures. I only received these this morning, and I've spotted, since we prepared this statement, that I didn't amend the heading to the right-hand column, which should now say to 30th of September. The figures show slight improvements for the prior years for council tax and business rates against those previously shown in the report. But they do still show that NNDR is still slightly behind target. In the report, in paragraph 2.8, I had said that the arrears at the 31st of August related to some payments from the county council for business rates that were late. But I also said that those payments had been received from the county council. That actually was inaccurate, so I apologise for that. I've since been informed that while the county paid some of their accounts, there are still some that are in dispute, and particularly one that relates to a property that they've disposed of but didn't tell us. So that's still showing as being in arrears until we bill the correct person. So hopefully by the time we get the figures for October, we will be back on track for business rates. We are still collecting prior year's council tax as well as the current year's council tax and business rates, which is why there's been an improvement on prior year figures. We've recently issued summonses last week for people in arrears who are not keeping up their payments, and there are going to be courts later this month. We're also discussing legal action with the legal team for some long-standing debts where such action will be cost-effective. There are two cases in this report where we're asking for approval of write-off. Both relate to business rates and both relate to businesses that have become insolvent. So there is little chance of us collecting those business rates. So I'm asking members to approve those. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions? If there's no questions, I have a proposer. Councillor Bond?
Yes, I would propose that we accept the recommendation, Chair, given that actually the recommendation relates to the issue mentioned in Appendix 1 of the two businesses that are in liquidation.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a second at all, please? Councillor Hughes?
Yes, Chair, I second.
Oh, sorry? Oh, secondly, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, and put that to the vote then, please. That's carried, everyone. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone. That's all items. We covered everything off, Kerry.
Yeah, got agenda 13.
Yeah. Work programme for year ahead.
I think that's all done, isn't it?
Which doesn't seem to have an attachment to it.
No, I think we've got a work programme for the year ahead for committee to consider training or briefings they wish to see on issues relating to the committee's terms of reference. Do we have any training that you'd want to see, basically, as part and parcel of this? I think we put this in a while ago, I think with Helen, previously, basically, to pick up any works that we wanted to do. It might be something that we review offline, actually, and put forward and put proposals to the members.
I think you're right, Chair. I think doing it on the hoof now might be...
Exactly, improvising is not the best idea.
No, not at all.
And I think there was a couple of training sessions talked about there, certainly with the FOI and some of the GDPR stuff. So apologies, Karen.
Our Treasury advisors, all in close, offer a free training session for members each year, whether it's just for this committee or for council. That's something that we could arrange for early in the year to talk about Treasury management strategy, but also perhaps about ESG and what they can do.
Sounds thrilling, Chair.
Well, it's free, so Karen's saving us money again, so come on, thank you. Credit where credit's due, quite literally. Right, thank you very much, Karen, we'll take that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, good night.